Good evening, welcome to ITV News Meridian.
Tonight's headlines here in the south.
Terrible. It's not just one day, it seems to be day in, day out.
Definitely won't see the kids tonight.
I've just had to pay £75 for a taxi to get to work.
Day 1 of 5, passengers' anger and frustration over the Southern Rail strike, the longest in 50 years.
Rusting away in a corner of Portsmouth's naval base, will the aircraft carrier HMS Illustrious be sold for scrap?
In full view, what would you do if you saw a dog alone in a car on a hot day? A new appeal to protect pets.
And in honour of a wartime Spitfire hero stationed in Sussex, why his family is giving away his memorabilia. Good evening to you. Stations closed, trains cancelled and hundreds of thousands of fed-up passengers stranded. It is day 1 of a 5-day strike on Southern Rail and the longest in almost 50 years.
Only 60% of Southern trains are running this week, just a month after an emergency schedule was introduced that cut 341 trains from the timetable. There are no trains at all between Havant and Chichester this week and north from Horsham. All Southern trains are cancelled from Southampton and Portsmouth Harbour, and the service is greatly reduced east of Chichester to Brighton and Three Bridges. Well, the Prime Minister Theresa May today said she strongly condemns the strike over the future role of conductors. Our reporter Richard Sleer spent the day with frustrated passengers. He's on board a train from Chichester to Southampton this evening.
Been a miserable day for train passengers. Southern Rail's emergency timetable meant it was running just 60% of normal services, but that did depend on your location because some parts of the system didn't have any trains running at all. Well, this morning I got on a train at Southampton to see what the journey was like along the south coast to Chichester. This is peak rush hour at Southampton Central Station, and the platforms are almost deserted. On the 752 travelling east, there are plenty of seats, and that's how it stays for the first part of my journey.
The next station is Hilsea.
It was only as the train approached Portsmouth that passenger numbers started to pick up.
When I came in the morning, I looked around and it was really quiet, so either it's because of holidays or I don't know, maybe people organise different kind of transport.
The main problem with this company that's on strike today is that they've been running a reduced timetable for months, which has been very inconvenient, and so this just tops it off.
After changing at Fratton, I find that there are no trains running at all between Havant and Chichester, so I transfer to a bus replacement service, which takes the slow road to my final destination. The journey from Southampton Central to Chichester has taken more than 2 hours, and this is typical of the sort of disruption that passengers are likely to face for the rest of this week. And travellers we spoke to here this morning seem to be resigned to their fate.
Awful. I'm having to get into work an hour early because that's the only train I could get.
I'm going to have to try and get a lift into work most days, I think.
It's getting home. You can usually get to work okay, and then you just tell your family, I'll see you when I see you.
It means I'm going to, be late for work and have to let my boss know, and yeah, it's not great.
Local businesses have also suffered.
Well, there's pretty much no trains going south side, and since we run on the platform 2 side, we have to close as there's nothing going through.
This week's strike will affect services right across the south. Unlike the journey from Southampton, finding a seat on one of the few Brighton to London trains that was running was a luxury.
Even when there's not a strike on, there's always delays, and you just end up standing or just not getting your train home.
Just resign yourself to the fact that it's going to be a poor service. It's really disappointing and it makes people quite frustrated. So it's a very unpleasant experience, to be honest.
When I get the train in the morning anyway, I'm expecting a delay, so it's not really changed anything for me. It's just made it more busy. That's the difference.
This is the longest rail strike since 1968, and by the time it ends at midnight on Friday, it will have affected hundreds of thousands of passengers. Last week, 3 days of talks failed to break the deadlock between managers and the union, who can't agree on the future role of train guards.
It's not disruption that's been caused by us, it's been disruption being caused by the company seeking to impose driver-only operation and getting rid of a safety critical guard on a train.
This is about relieving the conductor of the duty of having to control the doors, moving that to the driver because the trains are designed that way, the same as it operates on London Overground, LUL, Chiltern. 40% of our trains already operate like this.
Both sides are entrenched in their views, with long-suffering passengers caught in the middle. Well, today, Southern Rail said that 9 out of 10 trains on its emergency service did run on time, and also that its stations were quieter than normal as passengers made alternative arrangements to get to their destinations. But the strike does look like it will continue for the rest of this week, and also there is more bad news down the line for train passengers as 2 other rail unions are balloting for strike action. It does seem that industrial relations on the railways are as bad as they have ever been.
Well, one regular commuter is Summer Dean. She joins us now via Skype. Summer, you're self-employed. You're now staying in London until Wednesday. What's been your worst journey so far? Has it been a nightmare?
It's been an absolute nightmare, yeah. I've had journeys where 2 or 3 trains in succession have been cancelled, and then, you know, hundreds of people are trying to ram onto one train, and it's a really frustrating situation. And, you know, to be hours late for clients in a different cities, you know, it's terrible.
You were part of the passenger protests over the state of Southern Rail. Strong protest, but little gain so far. Was it worth it? Would you do it again?
I think it definitely was worth it to have passengers showing that they do have a voice. The government and Southern and Govia keep saying that their main concern is their passengers. They're deeply sympathetic, but no one's asking the passengers how they feel. And I think the protests and the groups around the protest are really giving passengers the platform to be able to actually voice their opinions.
Now, the unions say the strike's over safety. Southern Rail say they're being unreasonable. Where does your sympathy actually lie?
I think my sympathy lies with the passengers who are trying to use the service. Obviously, there is a dispute happening, and that is between Govia/Southern, the Department for Transport, and the union to sort that out. It's not my job to have sympathy for any of those people. At the moment, my sympathies lie with my fellow train users.
And very briefly, your message to the government.
Message to the government is this has literally got to a point now where you're going to have to step in. The passengers are absolutely, you know, we're tired of blame shifting. So it's time to step in, and it's time to just sort this situation out.
Summer Dean, good to talk to you. Wish you well. Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Well, not surprisingly, plenty of you getting in touch about this. Amanda Putty-de-Arth says, my husband had to make his way from Brighton to Seaford this morning to get the first train into Croydon, only to find out once he was there that it had been cancelled. He's leaving 2 hours earlier than he should, and he's got no idea when he's going to get home.
Ella Charlton from Guildford says, how stupid and unnecessary. I agree with the union, but I do feel terribly sorry for commuters.
And Mark Stonestreet says some of us will be driving to work, which will cost us more than we're getting back from Southern via their compensation. The service is a shambles.
Thanks for your comments. Please keep them coming.
Now, in other news tonight, and a man who died after being struck by a train when he put his head out of a window has been identified as a 24-year-old from East Grinstead in West Sussex. It happened on board a Gatwick Express train at Wandsworth Common Station yesterday afternoon. Investigators believe the man, who hasn't been named, may have been leaning out of a train door window when he was struck.
A fire's broken out at an industrial waste site near Southampton. Crews were called to Biffa Waste Services in Marchwood shortly after 1 o'clock this afternoon. People living nearby have been told to close their windows and doors due to the high level of smoke.
Almost 300,000 people attended Brighton Pride at the weekend. Extra security measures were put in place with more police officers and concrete barriers installed along the parade route. There were 25 arrests in total for drug offences, assault and public disorder. An illegal car park rave was also shut down.
An 11-storey block of flats could replace empty shops in Southampton city centre. Plans for 100 new homes on Orchard Lane near Debenhams have been submitted to the council. It's part of a major overhaul of the East Street area.
Now, attempts to preserve the Navy's longest-serving aircraft carrier have been abandoned. longest-serving aircraft carrier have been abandoned.
Well, the government had hoped Illustrious would be saved for the nation, but now she's being sold for scrap.
Today, her first commanding officer said the decision was sad but not surprising. Here's Richard Jones.
The ship, now known as the former HMS Illustrious, is still among the top attractions for visitors taking a tour around Portsmouth Harbour.
They're still excited by an aircraft carrier. Everybody loves an aircraft carrier. We're looking at ex-servicemen, people who served on it. They quite often come round asking to have a look around Illustrious, just to go and see it one last time.
And this is what they see: Illustrious alongside, abandoned and stripped of anything still of value. These pictures, taken just a few weeks ago, show her where she's been since 2014. That was when she was decommissioned at short notice. It was hoped she'd be saved. One idea was to transform her into a combined hospital and luxury yacht. And there were other plans for her future, as a museum in Hull, as a conference and event centre here in Portsmouth, and the government of Gibraltar even expressed an interest in taking her on as a tourist attraction. All fell through. Admiral Sir Jock Slater was Illustrious's first commanding officer and took her to the Falklands War in 1982. He says saving her would have been expensive.
I'm not at all surprised, because I understood fully just exactly what it would cost in the long run. But I'm very sad nevertheless. I mean, there are thousands of sailors, Marines, Royal Air Force people, Army people who've served in this Illustrious 5 as she was called, who will be very sad to see her go.
It's likely Illustrious will follow in the wake of her sister ships Ark Royal and Invincible and be towed off to a Turkish scrapyard this autumn. But she won't be forgotten. Some of the many thousands who sailed on her will be at their annual reunion in October to remember their time aboard. Richard Jones, ITV News.
A wonderful, wonderful ship. That's very sad. You're watching ITV Meridian. Thank you for choosing us. As always, we really do appreciate it. Coming up,
in honour of a wartime Spitfire hero from Sussex, why his family are giving away his medals and all of his logbooks.
For more on all of our stories, do head to itv.com/Meridian. Any views or news, call us please, 0808 1010 095, the number to ring, or get in touch via Facebook, or why not send us a tweet at ITV Meridian.
Now, there's a powerful new awareness campaign warning dog owners about the dangers of sunshine and hot weather for their pets.
Yes, temperatures are on the up here in the south this week, apparently, and the RSPCA is reminding people not to leave pets in hot cars and even to avoid walking them in the heat.
There were recent reports of a terrier left in a car in Weymouth. Police were called by a taxi driver who was concerned.
And in Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, the RSPCA says it received 478 calls about dogs in cars last year alone. With more now, Matt Price.
Is the dog going to be all right?
Yeah, we won't be long.
A matter of minutes which could make the difference between life and death. This campaign from the RSPCA warning once again about the dangers of heat exposure on pets. 6-year-old Cassie's getting a final checkup at the vets after suffering heat stroke only a few days ago. All it took for her to take ill was a walk in the warm weather.
It's scary. When she went down, and we've had her, nearly 7 years, and we knew there was something wrong. I thought she'd died. I've got to admit, I thought we weren't going to get her back.
Last year, the RSPCA received almost 9,000 calls to reports of dogs struggling in the heat, either because of direct sunshine outside or because they were left in caravans or cars.
Temperatures can rise very quickly, 30 minutes up to 40 degrees in a car. And it might just seem that moment when you think, I'll just jump out and do something, but you get distracted and your dog's in the car for any length of time. And that can lead to overheating, which can be fatal in dogs.
So what should we do if we find an animal locked in a hot car? Well, the RSPCA advised people who found an animal displaying signs of heat stroke to call 999. They warn that breaking into a car to help could still be classed as criminal damage. So tell the police of your intentions, they say. Take photographs and get the names of any witnesses. But the law does state you have a lawful excuse to commit damage if you believe the owner would consent to it, if They knew the circumstances. At this rescue centre, a different approach to keeping the animals cool. Playing in a paddling pool is a game for this dog, yes, but it's also bringing his temperature down on a hot day.
We've just heard of someone recently that unfortunately their dog did pass away after running around too much in the garden with the children. So again, you think that just because you're out in the air that you're going to be okay, but you need to make sure you've got plenty of water, don't overexert them too much.
The campaign video is being shared on social media to raise awareness. Its main message that even on a mild day, there could be devastating consequences. Matt Price, ITV News.
Well, not surprisingly, quite a few comments on our Facebook page about this. Jean Thompson says, people that do that don't deserve to have a dog. We know ourselves how hot we feel when we're stuck in a hot car for a short time. It's common sense, for goodness sake. If I saw a dog left in a car, I wouldn't hesitate to call the RSPCA and report it.
Carol Russell says human beings can be so stupid. I can't believe with all the warnings about this that pet owners are still doing it.
And Jeanette Lawson-Stocks says, I'm an old age pensioner. If I saw a dog left in a car on hot weather, I'm sorry, but I'd break the window with my walking stick and I'd take the dog out.
Good comments. Thank you for all of your opinions. We appreciate it.
Now the ITV Evening News continues with the national and international news at 6:30. With all the details, here's Mary Nightingale.
Gold for Team GB as swimmer Adam Peaty breaks his own world record in Rio. His 100-metre breaststroke is the first men's swimming gold for Britain in nearly 30 years. Misery for thousands of passengers as a 5-day Southern rail strike begins. And the new jab offering hope to those affected by arthritis. We do join Mark Austin and me for that and more at 6:30.
Well, Mary, thank you very much indeed. Let's stay with that Olympic theme. A real gold medal performance now from Andrew Pate.
Well, almost. It's been an extraordinary start for the South athletes out in Brazil, from those achieving a lifelong ambition to those blown off course. Jazz Carlin from Swindon picked up the region's first medal. In the 400-metre freestyle, she won silver. But it's not been straightforward for the South's rowers. The events yesterday postponed after strong wind was pushing competitors off course and over. But on Saturday, Catherine Granger from Maidenhead and Vicky Thornley from Henley were among our competitors safely through to the next round. While this afternoon, the men's and women's eights both won their heats. In the hockey, our men lost to Belgium, but the women beat Australia, with Reading's Alex Danson scoring the winner. They're in action again tonight against India. However, there was terrible disappointment for Ashley McKenzie from Camberley. The judo star out in the second round, beaten by the world champion, and he posted a picture of himself afterwards, huddled on the floor next to some bins, and he wrote, I don't think I need to say more about how I feel. Well, fortunately, a lot more to cheer about for Reading Football Club fans, with the new season and their new manager kicking things off in style. And it's where we start our Championship Roundup. Former Manchester United and Holland legend Jaap Stam was given a warm welcome for his first match as Reading's manager. And the Royals looked good, particularly in the first half when new signing Roy Beerin set up Dennis Rackles to head wide. Reading took the lead through another new boy, John Swift, signed from Chelsea. He's one to watch this season. And he nearly set up another goal for Stam's men, but Rackles once again couldn't finish. On a special day for Reading fans, when they remembered Eamon Dolan, who passed away in June. Brighton had goalkeeper David Stockdale to thank for keeping them in this match at Derby early on. But then the Seagulls started to take control, Glenn Murray shooting from a tight angle, before Tomer Hemed's superb volley was well saved by Scott Carson. After that, it was the Derby defenders who saved them. Hemed foiled again, before Murray so nearly grabbed a winner. In Leagues 1 and 2, a bit of a mixed bag, but again, all our teams there unbeaten. We start with newly promoted Oxford United. It's been 15 years since Oxford last played in League 1, and the newly promoted side soon took the lead. Alex McDonald's shot parried for Wes Thomas to score on his debut. The club hope he's the man that will replace Kemar Roof's goals, and he nearly grabbed a second. But Ched Evans scored for Chesterfield in his first match since being released from prison. In League 2, Crawley haven't lost on the opening day since coming into the Football League 6 seasons ago. And the defence had to stand strong here to keep Wickham out early on. Then Crawley captain Jimmy Smith pounced to grab the only goal. Head coach Dermot Drummy signed 17 new players in the summer, but one of them didn't last the whole match. Andre Blackman off for a second yellow card for dissent. High hopes for Portsmouth this season, but a disappointing start when Carlisle's Reggie Lamb poked home. The visitors then had a man sent off, Jamie Devitt having tugged Gary Roberts for his second yellow. Cole Baker made sure Pompey picked up a point with this equaliser, and Danny Rose so nearly grabbed a winner. That woodwork keeps getting in the way. Finally, everything's gearing up for it to be a great Cows week, with some adrenaline-pumping wind providing excellent racing conditions. This weekend, the early start saw the wind pushing 25 knots. Thankfully, that dropped down to 16 to 20 knots, with everyone from competitors like Sir Keith Mills to families enjoying themselves out on the water taking part. And we will be live in Cows tomorrow.
And we'll get them a weather forecast from Simon shortly. But in football, Patey, all of our teams thus far unbeaten.
Long may it continue. And as I say, without that woodwork, even more wins. But you're right, no defeats yet. Onwards and upwards, I say.
Much as you predicted. You heard him on Friday.
Absolutely.
You're the little oracle.
That's the fella. I've been called worse.
Thanks very much, Andrew. Now, the South, of course, has long been fascinated with the Spitfire. The prototype first flew from Southampton and the early models were built there, but the pilots of these extraordinary planes were just as incredible. Well, tonight we have the story of one of those men who was honoured in Italy more than 60 years after he lost his life.
Almost a decade ago, the RAF confirmed that remains found on the outskirts of Assisi were those of Flight Lieutenant Desmond Ibbotson, whose squadron at one time were based in Sussex. His plane came down during a test flight in 1944.
Well, now his family members have handed over his war medals and logbooks, as David Hurst will explain.
Can I propose 3 cheers to Desmond? Hip hip. Hooray! Hip hip.
4 generations of Desmond Ibbotson's family gather to celebrate his short but remarkable life. Earlier, handing over the memorabilia of a man whose heroics twice earned him the Distinguished Flying Cross.
The sad thing is, those of us who are here today had never met him. All we have to go on are the stories our mothers gave us and visiting Italy when his body was reinterred. So today has been a nice way in which we've brought everything together and remembered for future generations.
In the Second World War, his squadron had supported the advance up the Italian mainland. This a rare moment of relaxation in Assisi. His courage in the African desert and the invasion of Sicily had already earned him the RAF's highest accolades. Once, when he was shot down and captured by the Germans, he was introduced to the Desert Fox, Field Marshal Rommel, but later escaped. Yet, with Assisi liberated, he died on a routine test flight when his engine cut out. He diced with death so many times, and one RAF commander who's flown a Spitfire in Desmond's colours understands the dangers he faced.
Within a year of finishing his training, had been awarded a DFC and had shot down 7 aeroplanes. And he shot down over 11 aircraft by the time his operational flying career ended. It's an incredible achievement to have done that, and part of that is simply his determination and bravery to keep returning to the fight after being shot down so many times. It's an incredibly brave thing to do.
Desmond's story might have been consigned to history, but 9 years ago his remains were discovered by an Italian historical society, and he was buried with full military honours at the Commonwealth Cemetery close to Assisi. Local people also paid for a memorial to a man they regarded as a hero.
Well, this is the site on the outskirts of Assisi where Desmond Ibbotson lost his life at the age of only 23. By then, he was already a Spitfire ace in his short but brilliant career.
The best thing about handing it to the Air Museum that we won't see the memorabilia dissipate throughout the family. It's in one place for anyone, not just family, but locals and anyone who visits the museum to view.
Thanks to the family's generous donation, many thousands of people who also didn't know Desmond Ibbotson will now get the chance to discover his remarkable story.
David Hurst reporting there now with Stargazing with Simon.
Yes, obviously seen as Spitfire in the sky at a daytime is a treat.
Yes.
How do you fancy seeing a meteor in the sky of a night time?
Yes.
It's the annual treat that is the Perseid meteor shower. Basically, it's the dust from the Swift-Tuttle comet. Now, we've already had a sighting from our old friend Greg Parker at the New Forest Observatory. There it is, that line down in the bottom corner there. But he also saw something else, which is another treat at this time of year, and that is the summer triangle, which comprises of, firstly, Deneb, which is it's in the constellation of Cygnus, 19th brightest star in the sky. Yes. Then you've got Vega, which is the 5th brightest star, and finally down at the bottom, that's Altair, which is the 12th brightest and the brightest star in Aquila. So now you know. Other lovely nighttime shots that we've had coming in. Jamie Fielding in Chelsea sent us this picture of the Milky Way over the lifeboat station. Isn't that gorgeous? Beautiful. And here's the Milky Way again, just next to the Hardy Monument in Dorset, 72 foot high, erected in 1844 in memory of Vice Admiral Sir Thomas Hardy, not the writer Thomas Hardy. No. He's another one. And finally, in that gorgeous look, a lovely star trail from Nick Lucas in Ashley Heath. But as I say, Perseid meteor shower, what you want to do is look into the northeast sky, try and lie on the ground so you're not getting any light pollution from street lights or anything like that, and then you just stare at the sky. At its peak, you might see 2 or 3 every minute, just little dots shooting through the sky.
I didn't realise you know so much about stars.
I know everything about everything, Fred. You should know that by now.
And talking of stars, here he is, our meteorological star, Simon Parkin.
Well, you might have noticed that today wasn't as warm and clammy as the weekend. That's because the humid air has disappeared and instead we've got cooler, fresher air thanks to low pressure to the northeast of us and high pressure to the southwest. And we're sandwiched in between with an airflow coming straight down from the frozen north. So temperatures below average for the start of the week. By the end of the week, the high pressure starts to dominate. We pick up a westerly airflow and so temperatures will then be above average for the time of year. Now, the upshot is that tonight, whilst it's great for meteor spotting, lots of clear skies, it's really going to be quite nippy. Temperatures in the towns and cities, 10, 11 degrees, in some rural spots down to around 7 or 8. So if you're going out tonight or first thing tomorrow morning, wrap up warm because it will be a little bit chilly. But the strong sun is going to lift those temperatures tomorrow. Lots of blue sky to get us going. As we head through the day, temperatures finally creeping up to around 19, 20 degrees. Still with a northwesterly airflow, but the breeze isn't very strong, so should actually feel quite pleasant if you're out in that sunshine. Fair weather cloud will bubble up, yes, and there's a risk of an odd shower, but I think for most of us it is going to stay dry. As for your high tide times, well, you can see in Southampton 3:05 in the morning, 4:20 in the afternoon, and then a decent start to Wednesday, but a weak weather front pushing its way south and eastwards will bring some cloud later on and also some patchy drizzly rain too.
Now, in just a moment, the ITV Evening News with Mary Nightingale and Mark Austin.
Stacey's got our late news, so do try and join her if you can. But for now, from the team here at ITV Meridian, thank you, as always, very much indeed for watching. Take care. See you soon.
See you
From us all.
Good night.
Bye-bye.